Hola chicos, hoy vamos a repasar para examen número 2. Today we're going to review for exam number 2. If you look on the course content on Blackboard, you'll see a number of many videos that go in more detail with these individual concepts. But today we're going to go over some of them again. I'm going to access them on MindTap to help you familiarize yourself with this program that you'll continue to use in your subsequent Spanish classes as well here at the University of Sumter. So some strategies, right? So when we want to use things in context, right? We want to use the vocabulary in context. We want to say things aloud. We want to look for opportunities to speak Spanish and say things aloud. We don't want to remember things or memorize things. We want to learn things. Those are big ideas that will take continual practice. But today we're going to go over some of the vocab, not all of the vocab, but we will go over some adjectives and sentences and questions and verb conjugations, and finally the handy dandy review consolidation page at the end of all of these chapters, right? So remember, this this page, the Páginas para Estudiar, is on Blackboard, right? Okay, so we're in chapter 2 here. You see the handy dandy table of contents, which I think works a little bit better than the going through the actual page numbers. It is, I guess, page 54 if you wanted to check it out. But if we were going to, actually it's not page 54, that's kind of just arbitrary, right? So we can go over some of these vocabulary words, right? Like fácil, difícil. Guys, a good technique to study vocabulary is through binary relationships. What do I mean by that? So binary, there's one or the other, right? So fácil, difícil. If you learn the synonym, the affirmative word, you could learn the opposite word, right? So muchos, pocos, right? Etc. Fácil, difícil, etc. Divertido, aburrido, right? Fun, boring, etc. So remember, we want to go over our classes and our days of the week. There's a video on that, right? Lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo. And then some of the things that we want to learn about with the days of the week particularly is we use el instead of en, right? So los lunes, ¿qué clases tienes este semestre? Los lunes, miércoles tengo inglés, arte, biología. Los martes, jueves tengo historia y cálculo. So he's saying, on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, I have English, art, and biology. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have history and calculus. Remember the video when I was talking about the days of the week? This is one of the nuances where the definite article is used in Spanish, el for a particular day, los for habitual or consistent, things that you do on consistent days. So remember, we do not use en. We do not use en. It's los lunes, el lunes, etc. Right? So again, with some of these adjectives, antipático, simpático, bueno, malo, remember, binary, good, the affirmative, the negative, right? Organizado, despistado, right? Amable, etc., right? So remember, ¿qué día es? Hoy es domingo para mí, pero mañana es lunes. ¿Cuándo tienes la clase de inglés? Tengo la clase de inglés los martes, jueves. ¿Cuándo es el examen de biología? Es el miércoles, right? So this is something that we need to continuously work on, right? So let's go back and see what we have here on our chapter review. Los adjetivos, right? This is one that I made a video on that's very important, with some important things to know. So one of the things that we need to know about adjectives is they must agree in gender and number, right? So el señor Calvo is organizado. It's organizado because señor Calvo is masculine and he's singular, right? So organizado. La señora Garcia, la señorita Garcia is simpática. She's singular and she is feminine, so la señora Garcia is simpática. Tengo dos clases difíciles, right? Clases is plural, difíciles is plural. With the adjective, remember, use our handy dandy chart. If it ends in a consonant, we do not do something that indicates gender here, right? So tengo dos clases difíciles, right? Okay, very good, chicos. So remember, adjectives that end in O, we must change to match gender and number. Adjectives that end in E, we just change to match the singular or plural. The context tells us if it's masculine or feminine. Consonants that end in L, same thing. And the ones that end in dor, we add ES for masculine, plural, EAS or A for feminine, plural, or singular, right? And E stuff follows the similar rules as words ending in E or L. So remember, when you deal with adjectives in Spanish, gender and number, and they either go on the opposite side of the verb ser or estar, or they follow the noun, typically with a couple of exceptions, right? Tengo unas clases interesantes, right? Interesantes is the adjective modifying unas clases. Entonces, clases is the noun. Interesantes is what's describing the noun, classes, right? So it's plural and feminine. El profesor de inglés es amable, right? Hay pocos exámenes en arte. Hay mucha tarea en historia, right? So we want to look at this on these adjective pages. Remember, most adjectives follow the nouns, except there are some examples with bueno and malo and grande, where it goes before the noun, right? Before un buen amigo, we drop the O for masculine singular. Un mal ejemplo, again, drop the O, but we don't do it for feminine. Una buena amiga. Unos malos ejemplos, right? And then gran versus before versus after. Remember, we went over that in the video, right? So going right along, if you want to see more adjectives, you could always go to your chapter table of contents here and then go down to the chapter review, right? It's on page 92, I think, but you see your verbs here and adjectives, right? You can listen to them. Aburrido, amable, antipático. One way I like to do it, remember binary relationships. So antipático, simpático, bueno, malo, difícil, fácil, divertido, aburrido, fácil, difícil, malo, bueno, organizado, despistado, etc., right? So the more you say things out loud and make connections like we've been doing over and over again, the more you're going to get this material, right? Okay, moving right along, chicos, in capítulo número 2. So we're going to do on pages 61, 73, and 85. We have basic sentence structure, right? So we'll just type the page here because I don't think that is a corresponding thing, but let's look at la oración y negación. This is something that just can help you fundamentally in how language works, right? How English works, how Spanish works, the subject, the conjugated verb, and the other elements. So if I were to ask, ¿cuál es tu clase preferida? What is your preferred class or favorite class? You would say, subject, mi clase favorita es literatura. Mi clase favorita es álgebra. Mi clase preferida es ciencias naturales, right? So just like English, you kind of create with the language in the moment. Instead of trying to translate this concept that you get in your head, you want to create the sentences with the parts, right? These parts go together. Mi clase favorita, now I need a verb, es literatura, etc. Marta está en la biblioteca. If I were to ask, ¿dónde está Marta? Marta está en la biblioteca. If I ask you, ¿dónde estás? You say, I am, yo estoy, where am I? In my house, in mi casa. Yo estoy en mi casa, right? It's slow at first, it's a slow process, but the more you create with the language, this is creating with the language. The more you create with the language, the better you'll be. So make this shift from how do I translate this in my head? No. How do I create this with what I know? So, ¿dónde estás en este momento? Yo estoy in mi oficina, in mi casa, right? I'm in my office, in my house. So remember, subject, conjugated verb, and the other elements. And it's okay if these other elements are super basic right now, right? So let's look at another example. Alicia y Enrique van al gimnasio los martes y jueves. Alicia and Enrique go, where do they go? Al gimnasio when? Los martes y jueves, right? So we take subject, Alicia y Enrique, the verb, conjugated, van, then the other elements. This one has a couple. Where? al gimnasio when? Los martes y jueves. You can do this with your own. So, cuando vas al gimnasio? When do you go to the gym? Yo voy, I go al gimnasio. Where? Los lunes, los miércoles, los viernes, y los sábados. Very good. Excelente. Okay, so you guys can look at the other sentence structures on pages 73 and pages 85. So let's get to the verb conjugations, right? This is big. I made a long video detailing all of this in great detail. We'll start with the verbs in the AR, right? So remember, all of these verbs in Spanish change to match the subject. They change a lot more in English, right? So in English, we have to take. I take, you take, he takes, she takes, we take, they take, y'all take, etc., right? So the verb only changes twice, so the subject means a lot more, right? In Spanish, the subject is integrated into the verb. So yo tomo clases de ciencia. Yo tomo clase de biología con mi amigo, right? But again, going back to our structure, it's subject, conjugated verb, and the other elements, right? So remember, these verb conjugations, we need to make these a part of how we understand this layout, right? You have your singular on the left, tomo, tomas, toma, the plural on the right. Tomamos, tomais, tomen, right? This yo tomo is the singular form of we take, right? So what is we? We is I plus others, right? So the singular with I plus others would be just I, right? Tomas, you plus others is ustedes or vosotros, right? He or she, singular. They, he or she, plural, right? So same thing, right? So think of them like that. And however you have to do this, right? Tomo, tomas, toma, tomamos, tomais, tomen. However you need to do this to really get this and to practice these verbs in context, to make some little sentences with the verbs, to practice some of these very high frequency verbs, right? So, ¿dónde estudias? Right? ¿Cuándo descansan? ¿Cuándo descansas? Yo descanso por la noche, right? ¿Cuándo regresas a tu casa? When do you return home? ¿Tomas una clase de ciencia? ¿Trabajas en la universidad? Right? So ask yourself these questions and practice them in context. So we have the AR verbs, which we've seen. This is on page 70. And then if we go back to our handy dandy table of contents, we will see the ER-IR verbs, right? Very similar, right? But just a little bit of differences, right? Como, comes, come, comemos, comes, comen for the ER verbs. And then the IR verbs, vivo, vives, vive, vivimos, vivis, viven. The IR verbs only different in the vosotros form and the nosotros form, right? So again, practice these conjugations, right? Your singular, your plural, this whole chart is called the verb paradigm, right? Paradigm is a collection of things in like a category, right? A categorical way to look at this language. The verb conjugations is through this chart, right? So we can practice. Cuando corres? When do you run, or if you run, right? Cuando lees para tu clase? When do you read for class, right? ¿Cuántas clases asistes? How many classes do you attend, right? ¿Recibes buenas notas, or más o menos notas, or notas excelentes, right? So again, remember this subject, conjugated verb, other elements, right? Mis amigos y yo comemos en la cafetería. My friends and I eat in the cafeteria, right? Very good. So ER-IR verbs, right? And we've gone over that. So let's go back to our table of contents, right? And we have our final chapter review here, right? So we have all of our vocabulary words, right? One technique for vocabulary words is take you about 5 to 7 to 10 words a day. If you're a little bit more ambitious, try to use them in context instead of trying to just say club means club, concert means concert, exam means exam, right? Try to use them in context. Yo tengo examen dos la semana próxima, right? I have the test 2 next week. No toco la guitarra, right? You can practice these in context. Me gusta la música rap, etc., right? Yo como en mi restaurante favorita, right? Use them in context, right? Keep practicing with, so when you do this, you can combine multiple elements, right? So you're making these connections in your brain that is going to lead to longer lasting learning that will help you in your subsequent classes, where you don't have to learn all of this again when you get into the next Spanish class, right? Okay, so cuando limpias el apartamento? When do you clean your apartment, right? Etc. So practice these verbs in context, the same with the adjectives, right? Mi clase de historia no es aburrida. My history class is not boring. Mi mejor amigo es muy divertido, right? Or mis amigas son divertidas, right? So try to practice them in context, right? Then the days of the week, same sort of thing. Lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo, etc., right? And always the useful phrases, which are very helpful. But this is all on the number, the 92, page 92, but in the table of contents, unidad número 2, you go down here to the end. Good. So guys, about the test, right? So remember, the test will be multiple choice and matching with some listening and some reading comprehension, right? When you're doing this, we're focusing on your comprehension, right? Not necessarily your output yet. There will be opportunities for you to do more output things as we go forward, right? So read carefully. Read these things very carefully and think about how you're answering them, right? So first, rewatch all of the videos. Watch this video. Watch the other videos where I go into a lot more detail, right? Reach out if some things are not clear, but way before the exam. So I'm not responding to emails at 11 p.m. at night when I'm asleep, right? We have a question right before the exam, right? So keep that in mind, right? When you do the listening, let the words just read as much of the context as you can. Then let the words just kind of come at you, not trying to understand any individual word, but you're listening for the gist, right? We start at the gist and we work backwards to more detail, right? You listen for a word, you see a word that you need, you kind of making connections this sort of way, right? So remember, say things aloud, explain the concepts to yourself, right? So if you're learning about the AR verbs, go over the chart, say out loud in English what you need to know about el presente de los verbos AR, el presente de los verbos ARIR. Right? What do you need to know about how sentences are made? What are the things we need to know about adjectives or the days of the week? The more you tell yourself or other people these concepts, you're doing what's called conceptual learning. You're learning the concept via expressing it in your own words. That's going to lead to longer lasting learning. Okay, chicos. Always watch the videos. Email me if you have any questions. I'm happy to meet with you. I'm happy to meet on Teams or on Zoom, whatever's more convenient for you. And I want you guys to get good grades. So, hasta luego y ciao.